You open your eyes each morning to a world that wasn't designed for comfort. Your chest tightens with anxiety before you even remember why. Your mind races through scenarios that haven't happened and may never happen. You feel the weight of existence pressing down on you, and you wonder why being alive has to hurt so much. But here's the truth that no one wants to tell you. You were built to suffer. Not by accident, not by cosmic cruelty, but by the very forces that made you human. Your pain isn't a malfunction, it's a feature, and understanding this changes everything. Let me take you back 4 billion years to the moment when suffering began. Before consciousness, before thought, before anything resembled what we call life, there were just molecules bouncing around in primordial oceans. These molecules didn't feel anything, they didn't want anything. They simply existed in a state of perfect chemical equilibrium. Then something strange happened. Some molecules learned to copy themselves. They became the first replicators, the ancestors of DNA, and in that moment, they introduced something new into the universe: preference. A replicating molecule has an implicit goal built into its structure. It needs resources to copy itself. It faces competition from other molecules. It can fail. And with the possibility of failure came the first shadow of what we now call suffering. Every living thing on this planet descended from those early replicators, and every living thing inherited that fundamental anxiety written into the code of existence itself. You are the latest iteration of a 4 billion-year-old system that was never designed to be happy. It was designed to survive. Your brain is an evolutionary battleground, a collection of competing systems that were built at different times to solve different problems. The oldest part, the reptilian core, cares only about survival, food, reproduction, threat detection. It's been screaming at you since birth, telling you that everything might kill you, that you're never safe enough, never have enough. Then came the limbic system, the emotional brain that binds you to others and makes you feel the pain of rejection as intensely as physical injury. And finally, just a few 100,000 years ago, evolution gave you the neocortex, that thin layer of reasoning that makes you human. But here's what makes it tragic. These systems don't work together. They contradict each other. They pull you in different directions. Your ancient brain wants immediate pleasure and safety. Your emotional brain craves connection and meaning. Your rational brain sees the absurdity of it all, the inevitability of death, the vastness of a universe that doesn't care about you. You are not one coherent self. You are 3 different creatures trapped in the same skull, and they're at war with each other every single day. Evolution doesn't care about your happiness. It never did. Natural selection favored the anxious, the paranoid, the chronically dissatisfied, because those were the ones who survived. The early human who felt content sitting by the river was the one who got eaten by the predator he didn't see coming, the one who couldn't stop worrying, who always imagined the worst-case scenario, who felt a knot in his stomach even when everything seemed fine. That's the one who lived long enough to pass on his genes. Your anxiety isn't irrational. It's ancestral wisdom written into your nervous system. You inherited the worry of 10,000 generations of survivors, and now you carry their fear in your body, even though the predators are gone. Your brain is still scanning for threats that no longer exist, still preparing you for dangers that will never come, because it was shaped by a world where paranoia was the price of survival. Do you ever feel like consciousness was never meant to exist? Right, I've felt it too, if you understand, because here's where it gets darker. Somewhere in our evolutionary history, humans crossed a threshold that no other animal has crossed. We became aware that we are aware. We developed the ability to think about our own thinking, to imagine futures that haven't happened, to remember a past that's gone forever. We gained the terrible gift of knowing that we will die. Every other animal lives in the eternal present. A deer doesn't lie awake at night contemplating its mortality. A wolf doesn't feel existential dread about the meaninglessness of existence, but you do. Your consciousness is advanced enough to recognize patterns, to see the bigger picture, to understand that everything you love will eventually be lost. But it's not advanced enough to accept it. You exist in this horrible middle ground where you're smart enough to see the tragedy, but not wise enough to transcend it. Consciousness turned life into a philosophical problem that has no solution. The Buddha saw this 25 centuries ago when he declared that life is suffering, but he was describing a symptom, not the cause. The cause is biological. You suffer because you have desires, and you have desires because you're a living organism shaped by evolution. Every desire is a gap between what is and what could be. Hunger is the gap between your current state and the state of being fed. Loneliness is the gap between your current isolation and the connection you crave. Ambition is the gap between who you are and who you want to become, and gaps hurt. Your brain is literally designed to feel bad when your desires aren't met. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter everyone associates with pleasure, doesn't actually make you feel good. It makes you want. It creates craving. It generates the feeling of lack. And here's the cruel joke. When you finally get what you want, the dopamine drops and the satisfaction fades almost immediately. You adapt. You habituate. The new becomes normal, and then you want something else. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and you've been running on it your entire life. Evolution doesn't want you to be satisfied. It wants you to keep striving, keep competing, keep reproducing. Your discontent is the engine that drives you forward, and it will never be turned off. But let's go deeper into the darkness. Your suffering isn't just biological, it's also social. Humans are the most cooperative species on the planet, but we're also the most judgmental. We evolved in small tribes where reputation was everything, where being cast out meant death. So we developed an obsessive concern with what others think of us. Your brain has a dedicated system for modeling other minds, for constantly simulating how you appear to others. This is why you replay embarrassing moments from years ago. This is why you feel shame about things no one else remembers. This is why social rejection activates the same pain centers in your brain as physical injury. You're not being oversensitive. You're experiencing an evolutionary adaptation that kept your ancestors alive by keeping them in the tribe. But now you live in a world with social media, where you're exposed to thousands of people's curated lives, where you're constantly comparing yourself to impossible standards, where the rejection you feel isn't from your tribe of 30 people, but from the infinite crowd of strangers on the internet. Your Stone Age brain is trying to process an environment it was never designed for, and it's breaking under the weight. And then there's the ultimate cruelty: meaning. Humans are meaning-making machines. We can't help ourselves. We look at the stars and see constellations. We look at clouds and see faces. We look at our lives and demand that they mean something. But the universe doesn't provide meaning. Physics doesn't care about your purpose. Evolution didn't give you consciousness so you could be happy. It gave you consciousness as a tool for survival, and then that tool became sophisticated enough to ask questions it can't answer. What is the meaning of life? Why do I exist? What happens when I die? These aren't questions with biological answers. They're the sound of a pattern recognition system that's too good at its job, finding patterns where none exist, demanding significance from a universe that's fundamentally indifferent. You are a meaning-seeking creature, trapped in a meaningless cosmos, and that gap between what you need and what reality offers is the source of existential suffering that defines the human condition. But here's where the beauty enters the darkness. You suffer, yes, but your capacity for suffering is also your capacity for meaning. The same consciousness that torments you with awareness of death is the consciousness that allows you to love, to create, to find beauty in temporary things. You feel existential dread precisely because you can imagine alternatives, because you have the mental capacity to conceive of a world different from this one. Your discontent is proof of your imagination. Your anxiety is evidence that you care about the future. Your grief demonstrates the depth of your connections. Every form of psychological pain you experience is the shadow cast by a corresponding capacity for joy, meaning, or connection. You can't have one without the other. They're not opposites. They're the same faculty pointed in different directions. The tragedy of being human is that you are aware enough to see the horror, but conscious enough to find it beautiful. You know that everything ends, and yet you love anyway. You understand that meaning is constructed, not discovered, and yet you build it anyway. You recognize that your desires will never be fully satisfied, and yet you desire anyway. This isn't foolishness, this is courage. This is the human response to an indifferent universe. You were built by blind evolutionary forces that didn't care about your happiness. You were given a brain full of contradictions and a consciousness that asks questions it can't answer. You were placed in a world where everything you love will die, where suffering is guaranteed, where meaning has to be created from nothing. And despite all of this, you get up each morning and try again. You suffer, but you suffer beautifully. You ache, but your aching is the price of being alive in the fullest sense. Your pain makes you human. Your awareness makes you tragic. And your choice to continue, to create, to connect despite knowing how it ends, that's what makes you magnificent. If you see beauty in the darkness of existence, you belong here. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep exploring the poetry hidden in our biology, the philosophy written into ourselves, the tragic grandeur of being a conscious animal in an unconscious universe. This is where we face the darkness together and find that we're not alone in it.